Dr. Clary.
Good morning.
Good to see that you were home safely, and I hope you were able to get a little rest.
Not much. But
Yeah.
that will come later.
Did you drive over the pass last night too?
No, and no. As my grandmother always said, there's plenty of time to sleep when you're dead. I'll wait till then. Hopefully it's a long wait.
Well, good morning.
I'm glad you're back safely.
Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Atterbury, Gail Weaver. Good morning, Andre. Everybody.
Morning, Andre.
Morning, everyone.
Is everyone here that should be here?
Let me try to get the whole group. Well, normally Ryan would take, once we open the meeting, Ryan will take a roll call. I'm hoping.
Yeah,
to have everyone.
I'm not seeing him right at present.
Oh, Ryan's here. Ryan's on the call.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Well, it's 8:30. Are we ready to go?
Certainly.
Good morning. I'm Ron Anderson. I've been asked to temporarily chair this meeting only for the purposes of just process. Excuse me. So I would like to proceed with introductions of staff and guests. If Ryan, would you like to do that?
Sure. We'll take roll call. Commissioner Ron Anderson.
Here.
Dr. Sean Clary.
Here.
Citizen member. Commissioner Amanda McKinney.
Present.
Commissioner LaDon Lindy.
Here.
And Yakima Health District staff. Andre Fresco, Executive Director.
Here.
Myself, Ryan Ibach, Chief Operating Officer. Chase Porter, Senior Finance Manager.
Morning.
Melissa Sixberry, Director of Disease Control.
Morning, sir.
Lillian Bravo, Director of Public Health Partnerships. Lillian Bravo.
She's here. She just having problems with audio.
Okay. Sean McGee, Director of Environmental Health.
Here.
Nathan Johnson, Local Emergency Response Coordinator.
Good morning.
Dr. Larry Yeka, Health Officer.
Good morning.
Good morning. Wendy Garcia, Public Health Technician.
Here.
Victoria Reyes, Administrative Assistant.
Here.
James Elliott, Attorney.
Good morning.
Morning. And then if there's any guests or press or any other Yakima Health District staff, please identify yourself in the chat box. And if you have any affiliation, please put in your affiliation.
Dr. Dave Atterbury, Yakima citizen.
Gail Weaver, community member.
Thank you. What we'll do is if you can just put it in the chat box, and then Victoria can write it down. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Or excuse Ryan, I'm sorry. Looking at the wrong box. So now we will move on to the consent agenda to approve all items listed and with the asterisk. There will be no separate discussion of items unless the board member requests, in which the event of the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Now we will move on to Director Andre Fresco and board business.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes, sir.
We did skip number 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Let's go back and review the submitted public written comments.
Okay. We do have 29 written comments that have been submitted. So they have been highlighted and summarized to try to catch all what felt to be important information. So I'll go ahead and read the 29 written comments. So we have on, the first one is from Mike Willett. And he wrote, on January 14th, I wrote to the Board of County Commissioners noting my concern with those actions. In response, I received on January 18th, the Board of Health was accused of creating potential legal jeopardy at its December 2nd meeting. According to the response, it was from this punitive jeopardy that grew a rationale for the Board of County Commissioners to act quickly to fix the problems by drafting a new ordinance at the December 15th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. However, the response did not note that the Board of Health had already set a special meeting for December 17th to address procedural voting concerns raised on December 2nd. Nor did the response mention that other meetings of the Board of Health were not informed of the Board of County Commissioners December 15th draft ordinance at the December 17th special meeting. I noted that the new rules allow a member of the Board of County Commissioners to be chair of the Board of Health and perpetuity, a provision that appears to not be in keeping with the language or spirit of RCW 70.05.040. Also, the chair was given 2 votes, ensuring that the Board of County Commissioners members would never lose a vote. I urge the Board of County Commissioners to suspend the implementation of these new rules until after there has been a robust and comprehensive public debate to determine if the citizens of Yakima County approve the change in governance. Next one is from Don Gargas, doctor. Please reconsider your vote changing the rules for people serving on the county health board. It's alarming to me that someone with medical systems credentials that Gail Weaver has can be dismissed so handily from the board in your reconfiguration of terms. I hope you will agree with me and move to bring the board back to its original configuration where the commissioners each have 1 vote and the remaining members also have 1 vote each. Next one is from Nancy Booth, who's a registered nurse. I would like my voice to be added to the record in strongly suggesting the Board of County Commissioners to suspend implementation of new rules swiftly concocted without proper public input, yet with far-reaching consequences that are unconscionable. The Board of Health should be informed and guided by the most up-to-date science available, not politicians with political motivations. County Commissioners, please listen to your conscience, abide by your oath of office, and admit your actions were misguided. Involve the public in this change of governance of the Board of Health. Improve, don't destroy. Restore our trust in the system of elected officials and keep Yakima safe to live and raise our families. Next one is from Rick Linaway, Master Public Health, and Linda Linaway. As 2 citizens of Yakima County for the last 4 decades, we are taken aback by the recent action of the county commissioners on the issue of the Yakima Health District Board. More specifically, the overt display of power move to mandate that only a county commissioner could be the chairperson, and that position would have 2 votes on a 7-person board, which all 3 county commissioners sit. We are in agreement with Dr. Sean Cleary. Such moves are highly questionable. Next one is from Holy Barrack. I am very concerned by the recent changes to the Yakima Board of Health, many of which are direct violations of existing codes. Furthermore, adequate public notice of the commissioner's intent to make changes to code 6.04 was not given, nor was adequate notice given in the public hearing on December 29th. I would like the commissioners to discuss why the notice of public hearing for the meeting on December 29th was not circulated more widely. Next one is from Steve Altmeyer. I would like this article forward to the Health District Board and referenced in my comments for the meeting January 27, 2021. This article is science-based and directly from the Centers of Disease Control yesterday, January 26. Any action taken by the Health District other than following the recommendations would be ill-advised and not in the interest of the citizens of Yakima County. The reference of CDC officially say that most available evidence indicates schools can be safe if precautions are taken on campus and in the community. And I can forward those links to the board. Next one is Sandra Simmons, who's a registered nurse. I am writing to express my strong opposition to increased local control of the management of the coronavirus pandemic in Yakima County. Our coronavirus precautions and restrictions should not be less than what is recommended for the state as a whole. Business should receive funds for emergency support for as long as necessary. They should not be allowed to open unsafely and increase the spread of coronavirus in an attempt to increase their profits. Next one is Lizzie Lamb. Adhering to the updating charters is an important element of committee work, but so is clear communication and transparency. The board has issues with communicating openly about procedural events like re-electing members and term limits, but these issues are not solved by closed-door meetings or unilateral rewrite of the charter by only certain members. This recent attempt to rewrite the charter and reallocate votes places too much decision-making power with our county commissioners who are historically not elected based on their expertise in public health. We need careful, thoughtful, and informed leaders making these important public decisions who are willing to communicate openly about difficult subjects if we truly are committed to improving health outcomes for the people of Yakima County. Next one is Paul Snyder. Politicalization of infection control practices for COVID-19 has been disastrous for our country. It is any wonder why people are concerned about what appears to be political takeover of the Yakima Health District. Fighting against the governor is divisive and counterproductive. Working with governor is collaborative and based upon best current data. In closing, following the science and the data is critical. Having a county board of health that is on top of that is paramount. Next one is next one is Spencer Hatton. I want to focus on the responsibilities of the chairperson as set forth in your newly revised bylaws for the Board of Health. The question should not be if the chairperson can vote, but under what circumstances. Often the chairperson refrains from voting and instead oversees the discussion of motions that are to be voted on. The underlying principle here is impartiality. The chairperson votes when there is a tie, and the chairperson has only one vote. Those are the rules. However, what's more gracious is how the revised bylaws treat the role of chairperson. These bylaws now grant the chairperson unprecedented power of possessing not one vote, but two votes. How does that engender thoughtful discussion and create a sense of unanimity? It doesn't. I ask you to revisit your bylaws and reaffirm the guiding principles of one person, one vote. Skylar Young, please accept my gratitude to the Yakima Health District Board for the work you are doing to keep our community safe and healthy. I'd like to be on record as saying that I believe Governor Inslee's mandates regarding COVID-19, while understandable, are doing more harm than good in our community. I recognize that COVID represents a real and dangerous threat to the public health, but I am frustrated by the lack of recognition for the additional harm that is being introduced by shutdown measures. We're losing jobs and livelihoods. We're losing culture, not just jobs. COVID is real, but not affecting the health of all age groups the same. My young friends are particularly eager and willing to risk work. The shutdowns and isolation have a high social cost. We cannot talk about the efficacy of shutdown and other isolation practices without also discussing the terrible costs associated with them. Please act on our behalf. Please open up our local economy and give us the freedom to operate in our best interest, both as individuals and as a community. I genuinely want what's best for me and my neighbor, and I believe that most of the Yakima County feels the same. Next one is from the Friends of Toppenish Creek. As of today, January 25th, 2021, 25,000 people in Yakima County have been infected and 362 have died. That is a rate of 1 in 10 infected and 1 in 693 dead. For counties larger than population of 2,500, we are the worst county in Washington. For them to change the governing rules of the Board of Health at this time in an attempt to circumvent common sense public health policy and procedure is an outrage. It is ridiculous that they pushed this change throughout without giving the board prior notice. Since we're on a roll, it's past time that the Board of Health remove the racist mural. Okay, that has been done. That kind of art might fly. Okay, so referring to a mural that was in our lobby and that was taken down several months ago. Doctors Becky Lang Boyd and Tom Boyd. First of all, members of the Yakima County Board of County Commissioners have absolutely no expertise in the realm of public health or medicine, so it's preposterous for those individuals to believe they should be in control of the Yakima Board of Health. Secondly, the new ordinance drafted as the December 15th meeting of the Yakima County Board of County Commissioners appears to be an underhanded power play. All we see is a total lack of transparency as they quickly voted to allow a county commissioner to chair at the Yakima Board of Health with 2 votes, and also took control of the nominating committee for vacant Yakima Board of Health positions. The ordinance clears the way for the Yakima Board of County Commissioners to take over the Yakima Board of Health, and that is a frightening proposition in the middle of a pandemic when their top priority is not public health. We're all suffering from the COVID fatigue, but our top priority must continue to be the health, the safety, the very lives of our community members. The Yakima County Board of County Commissioners suspend implementation of the new ordinance. Next one is from Linda Atwood. Please retain Gail Weaver as the Board of Health Chair. She is extremely qualified health professional, experience in both hospital and public health administration. She has worked with community, multi-county, and state health organizations for many years. To lose her expertise on the board would be a serious loss for public health and Yakima County citizens. Next one is from Bruce Willis. Keeping qualified board members should be a priority over rotating people off with term limits. Keeping Gail Weaver on the board at this dangerous time would be a value to us all. Kay Funk is also a good person to keep on the board. Please put our health and safety ahead of political and economic considerations. Actually, that's from Ann Willis. Next one is Eric Homan. Local control does not mean personal control. The rules were put in place in part to avoid giving commissioners too much sway. The current commissioners have been quite public about the governor's actions during the pandemic. I would strongly encourage the county commissioners to leave the rules as they are. Next one is Addie Lodgeben. I write to register my strong caution against and frustration with the latest changes to our public health board by county commissioners. I believe the changes were made to benefit businesses without much oversight from actual medical professionals with a background in public health or epidemiology. I urge the commissioners to retract these changes. Not one commissioner has background in medicine or science. The commissioners are quickly gaining a reputation for lecturing, not learning, for stating that their opinions about the science and pandemic should carry the same weight as someone who has spent decades studying. Next one is from a concerned citizen of Yakima County. Why is it that for 21 days from December 15th, when the county commissioner's ordinance was first introduced, to January 5th, when it was passed, not a single word of this ordinance was even mentioned to the other Board of Health members or the Yakima Health District staff? Shouldn't an ordinance affecting the Yakima Health District Board be brought up to the other board members and staff before either introducing it or passing it? Next one is Lori Curtis. I am writing in response to change the Yakima Health and changes to the Yakima County Commissioners made to rules governing the Yakima County Board of Health. I'm concerned the ordinance was created without the knowledge of the full health board. This change wasn't publicized broadly enough to gather sufficient public input. Next one is from Wendy Dosher. Retain Gail Weaver on the Yakima Health District Board of Health. She has long served the Yakima County and in a variety of ways. Yakima is in the middle of a pandemic. Her knowledge and history of public health is invaluable to help bring the Yakima community through these very difficult times. The Yakima board has very little knowledge the Yakima board has very little knowledge or working expertise in the area of public health, science, or legal requirements, both on a state and local level. Next one's from David Hoger and Teresa Donovan. We oppose a recent decision to have the county commissioners have the ability to vote and override decisions made by the Yakima Health District Board of Health. The health management of our community should be decided by health professionals. There should be only one joint vote from the county commissioners. Next one is Victoria Wayne Miller. I am extremely concerned that the new rules approved by the county commissioners are not in the best interest of the public health of Yakima. Giving the county commissioners 2 votes each allows them the majority of votes on every decision. I feel it is totally irresponsible to have non-medical, non-science people controlling health science-based decisions that are crucial to protecting the health of Yakima County. Infection rates are high. We are struggling to get people vaccinated, and our commissioners have undermined the health board's ability to serve when the public health of Yakima is at its greatest need now. I call on the county commissioners to retract these changes until the community has had the opportunity to contribute their input. Next one is Cassandra Hernandez. What qualifications do commissioners hold that allow them to have 2 times the voting power as a regular board member? With the rising cases and fatigue of COVID setting in, now is not the time to relax measures, no matter what way you wish to twist things. It's disheartening to see that someone would put their selfish agenda in front of the health of those who are supposed to trust people like you in a position of power to protect their well-being. Next one is Angie Gerard. The timing of the Yakima County Commissioners' change to county code is both suspect and irresponsible, as it shifts focus away from addressing the urgent and vital issues related to COVID-19 and further politicizes the role of the Yakima Health District Board. I urge the Health District Board to select members steeped in healthcare and or public health experience and reject the Commissioner's code changes. Next one is Wendy Steer. Thank you for your leadership and work during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm writing today to express that I disagree with the Commissioner's takeover of our Public Health Board. Oh, that was to the Yakima County Health Department, and then to the Commissioners. Please rewind your recent ordinance changes. Please return the Public Health Board to its original structure. Leave trained professionals in leadership at such a critical time. Next one is Tony Haw. The representation of board members is highly skewed by the commissioners who have no decent knowledge of public health. Clearly, you as the Board of Health County Board, the Health Board in Yakima County should shoulder the blame as poor results in our county. You also need to be more open in selection of the members. Next one is Sam Booth, MD. The past year has shown throughout the world that putting the public health decisions of local communities in the hands of politicians without adhering and acknowledging the concerned, enlightened, and wise voice from the experts in the field has resulted in decreasing our own Yakima Valley chances to a strong, robust return of our freedom outside of our homes, into our communities and our schools and restaurants. The health experts need to be strongly represented on the Board of Health. Next one is Diane Harkins. In regards to the county commissioners taking over the Board of Health, the new commissioners seem to have bungled their opening move. Take time to do it right. Respect experience and expertise. I'm not understanding if there is a policy why there needs to be new rules with some members getting 2 votes, especially with all the current critical issues. Next one is Carolyn Kumau. Nationally, we are experiencing the effects of what happens when public health decisions are politically motivated, where 400,000 COVID-related deaths is the direct result. The Yakima Board of Health must be guided and informed by science rather than politics. Board members need to include people who have a deep understanding of the field of public health and are selected based on their professional merits. And that is 29 public comments.
Thank you very much. That was quite a task. Now we'll move on to the board business. Director Andre.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Good morning to staff, to our Board of Health, and our guests this morning. I'd like to begin by thanking you for joining us. It's a snowy day outside and a lot going on in our county, so I appreciate you taking the time this morning. The first order of business, if I may, is to recognize Barbara Hare, the mayor of Hera, who served for decades on our board. And so I wanted to share with you that we've got a plaque in her honor. The plaque says, Barbara Hare, Board of Health member in recognition of health leadership and public service to the citizens of the Yakima Valley from 1977 to 2021. I shared that we were doing this with Mayor Hare last night, and she in true form said she didn't want the fuss. She also apologized for not being able to join us this morning, but appreciated the recognition. She served for many, many years with distinction and has been really a monumental asset to us at the board, and we wish her well. And we'd also like to place a portrait of her, a picture framed in our executive room, because she really had decades of service in honor. So what we hope to do is have that mounted and then presented to her in future board meetings.
That's very good. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to ask for your understanding as we navigate this meeting today. We have many moving pieces to that, and I wanted to appreciate, first of all, those who've applied to the Board of Health as potential Board of Health members. Thank you for your willingness to serve publicly. And I'd like at this time to hand over this portion of my report to the nominating committee. That's composed of Commissioner McKinney, Dr. Cleary, and Ryan Aback, who's Chief Operating Officer here at the Yakima Health District.
Thank you, Andre. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we had a total of 17 candidates, and we were very excited to have so much interest and to see the passion of very highly qualified candidates. It did make the decision very difficult. We did decide to interview all candidates except for 2 candidates that did withdraw. So we did end up interviewing 15 candidates. We were very glad that we interviewed all the candidates because it was a very rewarding experience, and it gave all the candidates equal opportunity. We learned a lot in this process in the questions that we asked. For me personally, learned how the health district, one of the questions was how the health district could be more effective and efficient, and so learned quite a bit there, and also learned several different perspectives. As a selection committee, we were very excited about our recommendations to the Board of Health and feel confident that all of them will uphold the principles of public health and are excited to learn. And the common theme in all the interviews were that many of the candidates were very excited to learn about public health, and it was very important to listen. At this point, before we move forward with the candidates, I want to give Commissioner McKinney or Dr. Cleary a chance to say anything about the selection committee.
Dr. Cleary, I defer to you to go first.
Okay. Well, I agree with Ryan. It was a very good experience to meet the community members and the elected officials and hear their input on how the health district should be run. We had a number of good candidates, and it was very hard to whittle down, but I'm very confident that each of the ones that we are nominating will do an excellent job.
I will echo that it was an incredible experience to have so many people be willing to serve, especially on the health board during a pandemic. Dr. Cleary and Ryan and myself had a lot of conversations afterwards about all the ways that this health board is going to be able to really have a mission of supporting the health district. We're looking forward to that, to moving forward and being able to be a unified board who wants to focus on the public health for our community. I will say also that the candidates were extremely qualified, and we are looking to make note of like for like. So the makeup of the board is comprised of 3 county commissioners. It's comprised of 2 citizen members, and it's comprised of 2 additional municipal representatives, and that is by statute. So in this case, we have 1 citizen position and 2 municipals. So they will be replaced like for like. So the makeup of the board remains the same, which is a majority elected board who is here to listen for the advice in concert with the health officer and all of our highly qualified staff to encourage the message of the health district to spread across our county in the name of increasing public health. That remains the mission. And as Dr. Cleary stated, every single person had that mission in their heart. And we feel very confident with all of those that are being nominated to put forward. All of them would meet that message, with that mission rather, with grateful hearts, we know, for their neighbors. So very, very incredible process, and happy to have been part of it.
Thank you. So we will start with the citizen representative. So we did have 10 candidates. 1 candidate did withdraw, so we ended up interviewing 9 candidates. The selection committee will recommend to the board 2 candidates for the Board of Health to vote on. All board members will have had a chance to review all the resumes, applications, and letters of interest that were submitted. And there will be a majority vote will be required for a candidate to move on to the Board of Health. And that is according to Board of Health Resolution 2018-3 that outlines this process. So the selection committee's first recommendation, and this is by alphabetical order of last name. So the first candidate is Dr. David Atterbury. Dr. David Atterbury is currently the medical director at Nova Health, has been the director of neurosurgery, Stria Sunnyside Hospital, and attending surgeon at Yakima Valley Memorial Hospital. He has his undergraduate degree in biomedical engineering at the University of Southern California. He's a graduate of MD at University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, where he also completed his postgraduate studies. Among many accomplishments, Dr. Atterbury has been president of the Yakima County Medical Society and secretary, vice president, and president of the medical staff at the Yakima Regional. He has been an attending physician at all 3 hospitals in Yakima County over the last 10 years. Dr. Atterbury stated that he can bring compassion of a physician and the ability to listen to constituents to the Board of Health. And he is also a business owner, so he wears multiple hats. Our next candidate for a citizen position is Gail Weaver. Gail has been involved in various health initiatives in Yakima County for the past 40 years. Gail has various management and executive positions. In 1994, Gail was asked by the State Department of Health and the Yakima Health District Board of Health to become the interim administrator, and then the permanent administrator to provide leadership to the Yakima Health District during a time of financial instability. And she was in that position for 4 years. In 2013, Gail was appointed to the Yakima Health District Board of Health Citizen Representative position, in which she served until her term expired. And she was also the board chair until recently. A few weeks ago, until her term expired a few weeks ago. Gail has a Bachelor of Science degree from Central Washington University and a Master's of Science degree from the University of Wisconsin. She was the vice president of the Yakima Valley Memorial Hospital for 14 years before her retirement. In her interview, Gail stated she could bring experience to the Board of Health, which is extremely valuable and knowledge of the community, to the Board of Health, which is extremely valuable and has knowledge of the community that she has been a part of for the last 50 years. So at this time, what we'll do is the current Board of Health members will send a vote to myself and then also to our administrative assistant, Victoria Reyes, on either Gail or Dr. Atterbury. And that won't be revealed who's voted until we're done with all the positions, and then we'll reveal all 3 positions at the same time. So if the Board of Health members can go ahead and send me an email, and then we'll move on to the city representative positions. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Anderson, was there any discussion that we wanted?
No, that's fine. No, go ahead and proceed.
Okay. So it looks like we're just waiting for Commissioner Lindy.
Did you get my vote, Ryan?
Yep, we did. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the city representative positions. We did have 7 candidates for the city representative. One candidate did withdraw, so we ended up interviewing 6 candidates. Again, we'll read them by alphabetical order. So the first candidate is Patricia Byers. Patricia is the mayor of the city of Yakima. Patricia moved to Yakima 41 years ago. During that time, she has been the director of Christian education at the Yakima Covenant Church. She has served on American Board of Directors for AVM Ministry out of the United Kingdom and is currently a licensed pastor for the Yakima Foursquare Church. Patricia has her undergraduate Bachelor's of Arts degree from San Jose University and Master's of Science degree in psychology from Central Washington University. She has 23 years of clinical experience as a mental health professional, 14 years as YMCA professional director. Her board experiences include City of Yakima Planning Commission, Yakima Schools Foundation Board, and Business Council Yakima Foursquare Church. Patricia knows that she can bring experience to the Board of Health. The next candidate is Nyla Duvall. Nyla is in her third year as a city councilwoman for the city of Toppenish. Nyla is a first-generation immigrant who attended the University of Washington and received her bachelor's in economics. While at the University of Washington, she helped establish a chapter of Kappa Delta Chi, a community service-based organization. Nyla has been a board member and secretary, as well as a membership director for the Institute for Supply Management. She is also the secretary for Toppenish Community Food Bank. Nyla stated in her interview that she can bring Lower Valley representation, as well as representation to the Hispanic community, to the Board of Health. And finally, we have Julie Schilling. Julie is a city councilwoman for the city of Union Gap. Julie currently serves on the Yakima County Emergency Management Services Administration Board and is a Yakima Valley Emergency Response Team member. She has CERT training for COVID, Robert's Rule of Order training, and has served as vice president and president of the nominating committee for the Association of Washington Cities. Julie stated she can bring a different perspective and new ideas to the Board of Health. Any discussion, Commissioner Anderson, or?
Well, those are, we're voting for two of those positions.
Oh,
two
yes.
people
So, yes.
out of the
So
three.
there are three positions. I mean, sorry, three candidates for two positions. And so if you can, each of you will vote for two positions or two people, and need majority vote to go through. Just waiting on Commissioner Lindy. Okay. We do have three candidates that have received majority vote. So I'll go ahead and read those up right now. So on behalf of the selection committee, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Atterbury for citizen position. And thank you, Gail, for applying and going through the process. And then for the two city representatives, I'd like to congratulate Patricia Byers and Nyla Duvall.
Well, congratulations to all, and thank you everyone for applying and for going through the process and being excited about participating with the health district. I hope that you'll stay involved and that your knowledge, your experience will be available to the health district and the board at any time that we may need that kind of resource. That's much appreciated by me anyway.
I would echo that sentiment, Commissioner Anderson. Congratulations to all our new members. We appreciate your willingness to step forward and be a part of solutions as we move forward together to improve the health of our citizens.
Well, I had the pleasure of meeting all of you and having great interviews, and thank you for everyone who took the time. And congratulations to everyone. So we've got a big job ahead to bring this around. But Dr. Cleary and I, again, we're very grateful to have had the experience of interviewing and look forward to serving by your side.
And I would like to thank Commissioner McKinney, Dr. Cleary, and Ryan for their work on doing all of those interviews and doing all of that process. I have been involved with them before, but not to that large a number. And that took a lot of time, a lot of discussion, and a lot of decision making on each of their parts. So I do appreciate that also. With that, then, Andre, we will move on to item B.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Again, I'd like to share my appreciation to both the applicants and also the new Board of Health members. We at the Health District take public service as an incredibly important endeavor, and certainly for those who are willing to join us in that work and help guide us, and certainly doing so in a volunteer capacity is the highest form of public service. So we thank you very much, and also recognize that you're coming on to the board at a time of great instability and crisis for not only our county and our state, but also our country. So thank you for your willingness to lead, and we look forward to being of service to you as we help you become comfortable in your role and certainly acclimate to the work that we do here every day. Now I'd like to move on to the second portion of my report, which is discussion of a draft resolution. This is in response to the recognition that the Yakima County Commissioners have adopted a new ordinance as of January 5th, 2021. It's our normal process to have a resolution that recognizes any changes that may be an ordinance from the county commissioners, and certainly that is something that we take seriously. We will be asking James Elliott to be of assistance to us in this process. James Elliott is with Halverson Northwest law firm, and he is our legal representative. And so I defer again to James and also members of the board and recognize that we now officially have a full board. So I welcome your direction and thoughts on this. And if I can answer any questions, I'll be happy to.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the new board members. I have, and I'm glad Victoria has put this up on the screen, a draft for discussion. On Monday of this week, Commissioner McKinney had asked me to put together a draft resolution for discussion at this board meeting. And I drafted this resolution to be an aid in the discussion this morning. And the process essentially was a request to put this resolution together based on my interpretation of the law and also the ordinance that had been passed on January 5th. And my intention this morning is to go through those two pieces. And my understanding, and Commissioner McKinney, correct me if I'm wrong, is after I identify the portions of the resolution and my explanation, my understanding is the county commissioners then would, to any extent they have any concerns or disagreements based upon legal counsel that they have been provided through the prosecutor's office, will address those as we go through that. And Commissioner McKinney, if I have that wrong, please correct me.
You are correct, Mr. Elliott. Thank you.
So any starting point that we have in analyzing any ordinance that is put together as it would relate from what the commissioners have put into code as to how it applies to and would affect the Board of Health always has to start with what you see in the very beginning of the draft discussion for resolution for review. And that is pursuant to 70.05.030. And based on some of the comments, the written comments that were covered, I think it's important for the community and for the new board members, especially, to actually see the language. And that's why I put it together in the draft resolution here. I will read it for you. This statute allows the Board of County Commissioners at its discretion to adopt an ordinance expanding the size and composition of the Board of Health to include elected officials from cities and towns and persons other than elected officials as members, so long as persons other than elected officials do not constitute a majority. An ordinance adopted under this section shall include provisions for the appointment, term, compensation, or reimbursement of expenses. I am thankful, after reviewing the county commissioner's resolution bringing forth their ordinance and the ordinance itself, that they quoted portions of this statute as the basis for their authority. I am thankful to understand that the commissioners are in agreement that this is the basis of the authority. This is the focus of where we should be in analyzing any ordinance that is prepared. So the question really becomes, what does this ordinance allow and what does it deal with? As it states, it deals with the size and composition of the Board of Health. My understanding in reading those two terms would size would be the number and composition would be the makeup of the board. And I find that definition not only sort of in the standard Merriam-Webster definition of the word composition, but also as the sentence is written, it's really designed to identify the additional members from either citizen reps or elected officials who may join as a part of the board. So in that regard, our legal framework that we have to analyze is, does the ordinance from the county commissioners deal with sections related to size and composition of the Board of Health? And again, the focus here is the Board of Health members. That's what this statute allows for. I have seen some comments, or actually have heard some comments here from some in the public who have said that there is a changing of the composition of the board, when in reality, I would correct that to say that the makeup is still the same. I think Commissioner McKinney said this earlier. And I know that the public has requested that there should be more medical knowledgeable people who should be a part of the board and less sort of elected officials. I would concur with Commissioner McKinney that statutorily, the requirement on this board is to have a majority of elected officials. Any choice to do something different from that would actually be in violation of 70-05-030. In reviewing the situation that we have before us, we have now a new Yakima County Code that went into effect on January 5th, 2021. Any analysis of this Yakima County Code must be focused on the language that is used in this statute, 70-05-030, and I intend to do that. I saw that essentially there were 7 changes that need to be addressed here this morning. In those 7 changes, I have drafted a resolution that I fit comports with not only the law, but also the authority of the county commissioners. In those 7 changes, what I intend to do now is I will address each one of the 7 individually. I will identify essentially my understanding of the law as it relates to it. And then after I am done with that one change, I will allow an opportunity essentially for either questions, comments, concerns, disagreements. And I think we should be able to go through each one of them individually. I think that would make the most sense. The first change that I saw related to voting rights. The statute, or excuse me, the county code as drafted says now with a new change that each of whom, meaning the 7 board members, shall have 1 vote, except the chair of the Board of Health, who shall have 2. That is the language of the county code as it's currently in effect. And in putting this language in the legal framework of 70-05-030, the question becomes, is a voting change of the Board of Health something that is within the authority of 70-05-030 in all circumstances? In my opinion, giving a second vote to the chair in all circumstances does not fit into the legal authority under 70-05-030. Voting rights, in my opinion, do not relate to the size and composition of the board as a whole. That, again, is our legal framework under 030. I watched the Board of County Commissioners public hearing on December 29th to try and get a little bit more understanding. And in that meeting, it was identified that the intention of the Board of County Commissioners was to break a tie. That was the purpose. That's what was stated. For the new members of the board and the public as a whole, this is a 7-member board. If all 7 members are present and all 7 members vote, it's impossible to have a tie in that scenario. And creating actually an 8th vote in all circumstances would create that potential tie scenario that was intended to be avoided. I think that giving an 8th vote in all circumstances really does not make much legal sense. However, I will point this out as we walk through each of the changes. If the Board of Health, as an entire board of 7 members, determines that it wants to give an extra vote to the chair, then this Board of Health can choose to do that on its own. You can do so either through a separate resolution or a bylaw creation. But the idea that that extra vote must be there in all circumstances, I do not agree with legally. I believe there is one limited circumstance that I could think of in drafting this where a voting issue may exist when dealing with the size and composition of the Board of Health under 7005-030. I addressed that tie breaking vote in the draft resolution that I provided. That is my legal analysis on this. And at this point in time, I think it makes sense to allow the board members, to the extent that there are questions or disagreements or concerns, to do so.
Mr. Elliott, I would just comment that your adjustment to the resolution is in keeping with what was described on January 5th, and I support the additional comment that it shall be in case of a tie due to a vacancy or abstainment.
I guess if I might also comment on that, part of this resolution also mentions that someone who is a sitting member and does not have and is up for reappointment does not have the ability to vote for themselves. So that would be one circumstance in which there really would be the possibility of a tie, and therefore that might be an opportunity where the chair could actually break that tie in an important situation. And I'm comfortable with that.
And Commissioner Liddy, just so you know, I did address that in my draft resolution. It is a section on her related to that specific issue. I saw that as a potential problem based on the 2018-03 Board of Health resolution. And so I placed that language in here. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see that or not.
I did see it, yes.
Are there any other comments or concerns? I'm sorry.
This is Patricia Byers, and I just wanted to say, when I first heard about the potential to have 2 votes to break a tie, I was of the same thinking that if there's 7 people, that is really not going to be the case. But I think that in very specific circumstances, it works well. And so I thank you for the work you did on it and for clarifying what that might mean.
I think it's important that we recognize that this is only in a special circumstance regarding membership or composition of the board, and that this should not be construed to be an existing power of the chair for all circumstances.
That's the way I read it.
Well, and this is Nyla Duvall, and in my opinion, I don't agree with giving the chair 2 votes. I do believe that it can give the perception of unprecedented powers, and it really does not promote, again, because of that perception, public trust. So I, in my opinion, I think it should be removed in its entirety.
Ryan, if I could just comment, the tone of the comments that you read from the public comments section was one that there was concern regarding overreaching powers of the commissioners. I think it should be made very clear that this second vote, if it goes forward, is only in the cases of tie, and that it's not, in fact, a resolute power all the time that they have continuously on every vote. I think that's very important on messaging, because it shows that they are the board is listening to the public, which is critically important.
I would also like to propose that this is not the only way to break a tie. And it is obviously controversial. It's rejected by almost everyone who wrote in for the public comment. And I agree with Ms. Duvall. It has the appearance of granting one individual extra powers, which should not be the case. I would reject it as well and say that we look at other means of breaking the tie in that rare instance, and I do mean rare, that we would have a tie vote about a membership issue.
I think for comments, it's important to note that in corporate boards, typically the chair refrains from voting and is the tie-breaking vote. And so the reason for putting this in here is that on this particular board, the chair has set a precedent of being a voting member. And so again, it's in trying to find ways to avoid having impasse for the purposes that Mr. Elliott has specifically outlined and Dr. Clary yourself outlined. It's for the purpose pertaining to membership and makeup of the board only, and only in those rare circumstances where there is a tie. So it is really quite constrained.
Other comments?
I would just say that I think that hearing the letters, I can understand and would agree with Ms. Duvall that, you know, people have perception, and that perception influences their level of trust. So if we move ahead with this, it's going to require, you know, some very clear communication under what very limited circumstances this would have.
If I make, I'm sorry, Ron, I didn't mean not, I didn't.
No, go ahead. I was just
Okay.
going to ask for more comment.
I was going to say, I do need to make a clarification, Ms. Duvall, as it relates to changing anything. This board does not have the authority to change the Yakima County Code that was put into effect on January 5th. This board's only role is essentially, do we adopt a resolution that accepts a portion of what is in that code or in its entirety? So we as a Board of Health do not have the ability to change anything for the Yakima County Code. I just want to make sure that that's clear, not only for you, but to the entire public as well.
Thank you. Other comments?
I have a question for James. So are you saying that we reject, how would we reject it if we didn't agree with it?
So essentially the way that this works is the county commissioners have now put into effect Yakima County Code 6.04.
Right.
This board has the ability by resolution to adopt portions of it, to not agree with it completely. This board has its ability to make its own decisions. So I think what's being identified is by Dr. Cleary and by Patricia Byers that there should be some discussion going forward about, before we put together a final resolution, exactly what it is that the board agrees on should be the mechanism for a tie, how that should take place. It sounded like there were some questions. So I guess my first suggestion would be, and I know for the new board members, it probably wasn't a lot of fun getting a brand new packet yesterday that had all these legal issues. I mean, one option for this board, obviously, is to chew on the thoughts that I am identifying here today and then deal with it either during this meeting or at another meeting in the next month, or the board can call a special meeting sometime before the February board meeting. I think there are options for this board as to how to deal with it. But I just want to make sure I'm focused on what the legal ramifications are and what this board can and cannot do.
Director Fresco, any comment?
Well, I want to support the board having the time to ask the questions and come to a resolution together. So if the board, as an example, would like to have a special meeting to further discuss this, that's certainly reasonable. We have found ourselves historically with a lot to talk about in our board meetings. So again, I think the idea of having more meetings, we could have normal board meetings, which are again the last Wednesday of every month. And we could have an additional meeting to discuss this in the interim before our next formal board meeting.
Commissioner Lindy?
So is our thought to, well, of course, this is just point 1 of 7. Is our thought to go through every point, or do we want to, I mean, we could do a, I mean, I don't mind taking the time to do it. But are we going to look through every 7 points and make a decision on each one of them individually, or what's the protocol here? What's the thought?
Commissioner, my thought process was to walk through the ordinance and the draft resolution. Whether or not you're being asked to make any decisions related to this, that's a board decision. I just felt it made sense for the commissioners, to the extent that there is a disagreement with my legal analysis, to sort of work through it, or questions from board members to do that, and for the public to hear sort of these ideas. So I'm open to however you want to do it. I'm prepared to walk through the 7. I think 4 or 5 of them will go by very quickly, frankly.
Yeah.
I think really the most questionable one next would be the chair issue, which has been, I think there were at least 14 written comments that I heard that were addressing that issue. My suggestion is, at least to address the concerns of the public, that one would be walked through at a minimum. But that would just be my suggestion.
Okay. Let's
Can you continue to go through the rest of the points?
yes, let's do that, please.
All right, so with that in mind, I will go to the second change, which I saw is the requirement regarding the board chair. Again, our framework for analyzing this is 70.05030, which is still on the screen. The new version of the Yakima County Code 6.04.010, which was put into effect on January 5th, says this: that a county commissioner, quote, shall be elected as chair of the Board of Health for a 1-year term. As always, the initial legal analysis must be focused on this language that's on the screen, 70.05030. Does this change to Yakima County Code 6.04 fit in the legal authority given to the Board of County Commissioners under 70.05030? In other words, does the chair requirement deal with the size and composition of the Board of Health members? My reading of that statute is that no, I do not believe it fits within the statutory authority under 70.05.030. I don't think it relates to the size. I don't think it relates to the composition. The second question that we also have to ask is, can the Board of Health be forced to accept a county commissioner as a chair of the Board of Health? This is a challenging question, and I think requires the review of another statute. And Victoria, I do not know if you have it there, but there is another statute that is part of the board packet that is 70.05.040. Thank you very much. Perfect. So 70.050 identifies a couple of areas, specific instruction. The language of the statute reads, the local Board of Health shall elect a chair and may appoint an administrative officer. That's the first sentence. In the fourth sentence, it says, at the first meeting of the local Board of Health, the members shall elect a chair to serve for a period of 1 year. I think when you take a look at these two pieces of statutory framework, both 70.05030 and 70.05040, I do not believe that the Board of Health is required to follow this portion of the county commissioner's ordinance. However, and I want to be very clear about this because there are a couple of other portions as well where this will apply, the Board of Health as a group of 7 members could ultimately determine as a whole board that they would agree, that you would agree as a Board of Health to give away your right to vote for any other member to be the chair. and agree that it could only be done by the county commissioners. The Board of Health could choose to do this and identify such either through a resolution or a bylaw stating such. But in my opinion, because the Board of Health is not required to follow this portion, I did not include that language in my draft ordinance. I did not include the requirement that a county commissioner would be required to be a chair. That's the illegal analysis I have done, and to the extent that there are questions or concerns from the board members, I'm happy to walk through them.
Mr. Elliott, can you speak to the nature of the originating members of the Board of Health per the statutes you've pulled up?
Absolutely. As we looked in 70-05-030, that statute actually in its fullness identifies that the Yakima, the jurisdiction, I'm looking at 70-05-030. Victoria, could you scroll this back up, please? Whoop, back down. Can you go back down? Sorry. Right there. That's perfect. All right. It identifies that the jurisdiction of the local Board of Health shall be extensive with the boundaries of said county. The Board of County Commissioners, who are in the beginning sentence of this identified as the local Board of Health, they have the opportunity to change this at one point in time. So the original designation under 70-05 is that the county commissioners actually were the original founding members. And the opportunity then was provided for the county commissioners to make changes to expand the size or composition, which has been done over time. I don't know how many times it's been done. I do know the most recent change was in 2018 that we have is included in your board packet as well. So the original given authority was to the county commissioners, who then decided to expand that authority the composition of the board to include the 4 other members, the 2 city representatives and the 2 elected officials.
Thank you. And so I will state that for the counsel provided to the commissioners, the intent was to ensure that an originating member being of the county commissioners board would be a chair. And I would agree with Mr. Elliott that at this point it would be appropriate for the board to discuss and determine. I would motion to have verbiage added. And Victoria, if you'd like to type this out. Be it further resolved that as RCW 70.05.030 states, the Board of County Commissioners shall constitute the Board of Health. The chair of the Board of Health will be nominated by the Board of Yakima County Commissioners and appointed by the Board of Health for a 1-year term and may serve no more than 4 consecutive 1-year terms. Mr. Elliott, that is in keeping with the verbiage that you have applied throughout the resolution for the appointments of citizen members as well as municipal members.
Are there any other questions or comments related to this board chair question?
I'm still not sure that that conforms to the I believe it was the 040, 70.05.040 that the board actually is able to elect, because in that case, the board is not referring to the Board of County Commissioners, but the Board of Health in toto. And I think it's important also that we maybe revisit the history of the Yakima Health District. The Yakima Health District was formed in 1911 by a public health officer who was a physician. He was a non-elected physician in conjunction with the Yakima City Council and the county commissioners. And I keep hearing over and over that the county commissioners are the founding members, but that is negating the influence of those other members. And the first health district actually consisted of a physician, a registered nurse, and a sanitarium, and they received the majority of their direction from the Yakima City Council. The verbiage in this RCW is new, and it is just with regard to the redefinition of the health district. But the truth is, it was founded as a cooperative effort by city elected officials, county officials, and citizen members. And I think that should be honored in the future, currently and in the future, is what we've been working with, and keep this an open board with equal representation. And I need to point out something from the RCW also, the 29A.92, which is the Voting Rights Act, that does address the whole issue of the one person, one vote issue. But it also goes on to talk about the methods by which legislative bodies elect its members. And it directs local government subdivisions to adopt changes on their own to remedy potential issues, to provide members an equal opportunity to elect candidates of their choice. And I think it's crucial that we allow the members of the Board of Health to choose who they feel should be the chair.
I'd like to echo on that as well. I do feel that this change limits our choice on who can be the chair just solely to the commissioners. It could be possible that there may be a more qualified person that could be a chair, and I don't agree with that. So I want to make sure that the nomination is open to all members of the board.
I would second that motion, or not a motion, I'm sorry. I would second that comment by Dr. Cleary to say that to pass the public smell test, I think opening it up to all 7 members and letting the board choose who the chairman's going to be is a more democratic process, and it will just look better. And it also serves serves the purpose of what we're talking about here. I think it gets you out of the quagmire of, are we following the exact charter, and do the commissioners look like they're having a power grab? You get around that problem by just saying we opened it up to all 7 members. And if the 7 members choose one of the commissioners to be the chairman, perfect. I don't think anybody will say anything about that. And if they choose one of the other members to be the chairman, perfect. I think it looks like a better process that way. And I just agree with Dr. Cleary's sentiments.
So speaking in my experience in being being elected mayor by the city council, is one of the big questions that often comes up is, do I have more authority than any other member of the board? And trust me, that's questioned quite frequently. And my response is always, I have the same, the same vote as anybody else on the city council. I have no more authority than anyone else on the city council. As a mayor, my position is to chair the meetings. And I see that in this situation, that whoever's elected as chair would have that same position, that you would conduct the meetings in a well-functioning manner, and direction in that way, and chair the meetings, but that every member of the board has an equal vote. And that's been my experience in city council. And I'm not seeing at this point the function of the chair of the Board of Health as being any different.
Further comment?
I'd just like to say that I again think we really have to be aware of the appearance of this and the optics. It seems to fit with the complaints by the public that this appears to be a bit of a power grab. And I think we need to recognize that violations of the Voting Rights Act do not require intent. They do not require that this be illegal. It just needs to appear to discriminate against members or dilute their voting rights, or another way deprive people of representation. And I really don't think the Yakima Health District needs additional burdens. This ordinance has already cost a lot of time with the staff, the legal counsel. I don't think we need to also potentially make all of our subsequent decisions liable to legal challenges based on improper representation and violations of the Voting Rights Act.
Further discussion. We've had a lot of points of view here, and they're all very good. And I would ask if is anybody willing or ready to make a motion? Are we at that point?
Commissioner Anderson, I believe Mr. Elliott wanted to go through the rest of the points, and there should be 5 remaining.
And to the extent that the board would ask me, I really felt like those first 2 ones were sort of the key ones that were brought up in written comment. I have put together the draft resolution for you. I'm happy to walk through the other 5, but I realize this is taking up time of everyone else. So I'm look for my direction from the board on how you'd like me to proceed, or if you'd like me to stop talking, I get that too.
Mr. Elliott, I'd like you to continue walking through the other 5.
I would also. I think they'll probably go much faster.
Yeah, and I would agree. The third change is the appointment process and term limits of the Board of Health members. As I stated, our original authority, which is still here on the screen, relates to the ability for the county commissioners at their discretion to deal with size and composition of the board, including for, again, Board of Health members. That's the focus. And there are portions of the ordinance that deal specifically with that appointment process, term limits. My understanding is we've now brought on new board members, so the question of retroactivity or any of those things are now irrelevant. I put those in my draft resolution because at the time I didn't know how all of that would go. But at this point in time, I would say that under 70050, or excuse me, 7005030, the Board of County Commissioners have the authority to deal with these issues of appointment, of term limits. The statute clearly gives them that authority. And to the extent that it is dealing with that, I have included almost essentially word for word what the ordinance was related to those issues, with a couple of minor changes. But as it relates to appointment process and term limits, that's fair game under their authority, and it's in my draft resolution.
And Mr. Elliott, I guess I would like to add at this point that I would like to keep it there. I think one of the things, even though it seems to be a moot point with the application, one thing we have seen this recent application process is that we have a lot of talent in our community. We had a lot of great people that came forward. So when the opportunity arises, we will have quality individuals. But it's also good from time to time to get a fresh set of eyes to look at things. And so I think that's the value here.
With that in mind, do you want me to move on to the fourth change?
Correct.
Okay, so on the fourth change I noticed was adding the county coroner as an ex-officio member. That is found in the Yakima County Code 6.04.010 parenthetical 4. I would also agree that that is within the authority of the Board of County Commissioners under 70.05030 to deal with the composition, which is the makeup of the board. And as a result, I have included that language in the draft resolution for your review as well.
And for the information of the new members, we added the coroner because we thought that he could add another perspective to the public health concerns in our county. He would be an addition and another resource for us. Non-voting resource, but still good to have that access.
Any other questions or comments? You want me to go to number 5, Commissioner?
Let's go.
Number 5 I saw was changes to the power of the Board of Health related to committees. In Yakima County Code 6.04.010, subsection 6 and 7 talk about how committees forming on the Board of Health shall go and what involvement there shall be. Again, weighing it back against the authority under 70.050, or excuse me, 05030, I do not see how this restriction on the Board of Health actions is within the given authority under 70.05.030. It does not deal with size or composition of the Board of Health members. And so I did not include it in my draft resolution that I prepared. However, I will also state and want to make it very clear that if this Board of Health decides that as a 7-member board, it intends to give specific authority or powers to the county commissioners to be involved in committees or in other regard, that this Board of Health could choose to do that. And they could do so on its own by in way of either a separate resolution or by a bylaw to that degree. So this Board of Health has that authority to do it on its own. But to the extent that this board is being required to do it by that ordinance, I do not believe it fits within the authority of 70.05.030. Questions or concerns on that one?
Let's keep trucking.
All right. The 6th change I saw was as it related to the health officer appointment process. Again, our statutory authority of 70.05.030 is our framework. This framework deals with the appointment and composition of the Board of Health members and Board of Health members only. The health officer is not a board member of the Board of Health. As a result, I did not include this language in my draft resolution either. I again want to make clear that if this Board of Health of 7 members decides that it would like to create an appointment process similar to what the county commissioners have placed in 6.04, this Board of Health can choose to do that as a board, but it cannot be required to do so under 70.05.030. Questions or comments on that one?
This was for reference for new members. There was an issue that had come up where there was an informal selection committee, and the purpose was to define that. And so in previous cases where there were considerations for board members or health officers, there was a selection process that was just used by staff and advised to the board without it being delineated in any kind of formalized resolution. And so that is the intent of this, is to formalize that process and to begin discussion on what that should look like. And I'll cite, for example, the most recent selection process where myself and Ryan and Dr. Cleary were able to be the selection committee for the board members. That again was a process that we moved to decide upon the structure in the previous meeting, but it has not yet been formalized in any bylaws.
May I add a clarification, please, Commissioner McKinney?
Absolutely.
Thank you. The selection of our interim health officer was done under the direction of our former chair, Gail Weaver, and also our vice chair, Ron Anderson. So the selection committee was under the executive committee's direction. Just wanted to share.
Correct. But we're wanting to, the purpose here is to define that going forward.
Can you please tell me what number that is on the chapter 6.04?
On the new 6.04, that would be 6.04.030. That is the one dealing with the health officer appointment.
Okay.
And Ms. Duvall, it is part of the packet that is in the very end. Commissioner McKinney had put together a sort of a underlined section of 6.04 so that the board members and the public could easily see what the changes were. So 6.04.030 is in your back packet and is underlined the changes that were made in it. Any other questions or concerns on this one, or do you want me to hit the last one up real fast?
No, James, I apologize. I may just have missed this in your last comment about committees, but the nominating committee, you did not feel that the regulations allowed for that designation of the nominating committee? Is that correct?
Are you saying as it relates to the health officer, Dr. Cleary, or
No,
as it
it relates to a committee and the powers of the commissioners to choose that the nominating committee always be the county commissioners
So
for
in
all purposes?
in two regards, and again, I want to make this very clear, as it relates to Board of Health members. So that's what 70.05.030 deals with. As it relates to members of the Board of Health, the county commissioners have the authority to create an ordinance that allows a nominating committee to be essentially the appointment process. And I covered that one a minute ago as it relates to Board of Health members. As we're talking about the health officer appointment, my position is that because 030 deals only with the appointment ability related to Board of Health members, the health officer is not a Board of Health member. So my reading of 70.05030 is that the commissioners by ordinance cannot make themselves the nominating committee to deal with a health officer appointment. However, to the extent that this board chooses that that's the process that you want to do, that you want to, as a board of 7, make the county commissioners the nominating committee in any given scenario, this Board of Health has the authority to do that on its own, but it cannot be required to do so under the commissioner's ordinance. Does that clarify, Doctor?
Yes, thank you.
Does that raise any other questions or concerns?
I guess I might mention that as we talk about the issues of you know, the hiring of a health officer and the executive director, which were put in there, if that's not appropriate for this, you know, this particular discussion, because it's out, you know, it's outside his purview of the board, you know, board appointments and all that. It's still something I think that would be in the board's best interest to look at in the future, so we can actually codify that. It's good to have a clear process.
I'm sorry, Patricia, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I just agree with that. I think that, you know, when you have a board, you have subcommittees that accomplish certain tasks at periods of time. And I think a nominating committee is a good thing to have for, you know, to do some initial screening so that the entire board is not looking at going through that whole process together. And so that, you know, the candidates can be brought forward in, you know, in an effective way.
We are running up on 10 o'clock and we have a lot to still cover. We have several reports that need to be covered. My question is, do we want to set up another time to further this discussion separately so we have more time to devote to it?
I think that's the intent, Commissioner Anderson. Mr. Elliott, you were nearly finished with the points, correct?
The very last one is exactly the same as I just gave you the analysis on the health officer, but it relates to the executive director appointment. It would be the same exact legal analysis I just gave this board. And under Ms. Duvall, you asked earlier about what code number it would be, 6.04.035 is a new section added to 6.04. The same legal analysis I just gave this board related to the health officer would be my same exact legal analysis as it relates to the executive director. And with that, that's all the changes I saw and went through in preparing my draft resolution for you all to review.
Elliot, can you please clarify for me, the nominating committee is only going to be made up of the commissioners?
So Ms. Duvall, under the, if you look at 6.04 in the draft that has been, or excuse me, 6.04 that has been now in effect in January, as of January 5th, 2021, the essentially what is being stated here in 6.04030 is reference to the nominating committee. And also the same thing then for the executive director is on his appointment, it identifies the nominating committee. those sections of 6.04 or 6.04030 and 6.04035 do not give a definition of nominating committee within them. However, if you look at the code that has been adopted now, 6.04 in section 01, there is a stated identification that a nominating committee shall mean the Board of Yakima County Commissioners. It is unclear to me when I looked at this if the intention of that term nominating committee would only relate to 6.04.010, or if that definition of nominating committee would essentially mean Board of County Commissioners in all circumstances. So I'm interpreting it as, to the extent that that phrase nominating committee is defined as the Board of Yakima County Commissioners in all circumstances, that is what I would suggest the ordinance would read based on how it was drafted. And the commissioners can correct me if the intention was different. I'm just reading off what the code says. So
Thank you for going through that, Mr. Elliott. I would motion at this point to move forward with the rest of the agenda, and that we look to setting a special meeting to have a study session as a board to discuss further the changes that have been discussed in this conversation.
I would second that if that was a motion.
And moved and seconded to proceed with the remainder of our present meeting and to set a date and time for the health board to meet and discuss further all the various items that we've discussed so far. Is there any discussion on that?
I would just like to say I would appreciate moving forward with a special meeting. There's a lot to digest here, especially taking into consideration the legal findings that Mr. Elliott provided.
Any further comment?
No, I would just agree with Ms. Duvall on that. We do need some time and some process to this, and so I think having a special meeting rather than delaying it is an effective way to do that.
Is any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That looks like a majority. So I will ask then Director Andre to work on the calendar with Ryan and coordinate a time and a date for the board to meet in special session so that we can further discussion on all of this, all of the items that we've already discussed.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to clarify and make certain I'm following your direction. It's not a study session so much as a special meeting, because that still allows the opportunity for voting.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And then the second component is that, again, thank you, Commissioner Anderson, for continuing to serve as in the chair role. Commissioner Anderson had indicated his interest in stepping down from the vice chair, but for a point of clarification, because we have not voted on the resolution, then we still have the question open about the election of a board chair and vice chair. So my understanding, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but my understanding is that we will continue to serve without formally appointing a chair and vice chair until, at least until our next meeting.
That's correct.
Okay, so if you're willing to continue, sir, thank you. I would like to also thank our new board members. It's not often that you come on to a board and then are involved in things of such serious matters. And I would be remiss in not offering an opportunity for our new members, Ms. Duvall, Mayor Byers, and certainly Dr. Atterbury, to have a chance to speak. If you have anything you'd like to share publicly.
Dr. Cleary.
Andre, can you clarify for me whether this conforms to the bylaws or the rules that state that we're just to choose a chair at the first meeting of the Board of Health.
I can weigh on that, Dr. Cleary, if you'd like me to.
Yes, please.
I think statutorily 70.05.040 states at the first meeting of the local Board of Health, which would be now, the members shall elect a chair to serve for a period of 1 year. So to the extent that the board is going to delay this process, I have some concerns whether or not that would be compliant with statute 70.05.040. And I appreciate you bringing it up. I was just about to do it. So thank you.
Mr. Elliott, would it be appropriate in conforming with the bylaws to nominate a chair pro tem until the time that the board can come out of study session or special session for review of resolutions?
I am unaware of that ability, Commissioner. I'll be honest with you. I did not think through that legal process as I saw an agenda item on for today is 5C, election of Board of Health chair and vice chair requiring board input and board decision. My understanding in reading that agenda was that the board would make that decision today. So to ask me, I don't feel comfortable giving legal advice on that question, Commissioner. I'm sorry to defer, but I don't know. I just don't want us to be in violation of 70.05.040. I don't want to have anyone question whether or not this board is properly functioning with all that is going on right now. That causes some concern for me.
I would move that Commissioner Anderson act as chair for the remaining of the year, given his vice chair position the previous year for continuity of service. He's done a great job thus far in leading us, and I would move that Commissioner Anderson be chair for this year 2021.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint or to elect myself as chair for the remainder of the year. I will abstain from any voting. Is there any comment? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye. Nay.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We will now move on to financial and other reports from the staff.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes, sir.
are we required to elect a vice chair or not?
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get the staff a chance. So now the next item is a election of a vice chair.
I would nominate Dr. Cleary as vice chair, again for continuity. He's a next senior member of the board.
I'd second that nomination.
It's been moved and seconded to elect Dr. Cleary as vice chair. Any comment? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Dr. Cleary, thank you and congratulations. All right, I think we've got past those 2 points. Now, if I'm not in error, we can move on to the staff reports. First up is Chase.
Good morning, everyone. I am going to move through the financials very quickly, just in essence of time and everybody else reports that come in behind me. So I'm gonna move very quickly. And if you have any questions, please stop and ask. And if there's anything additional you want to ask me later, that is completely fine to do that too. So Wendy's moving down into page 14, actually, Wendy. So 2 more down. 1 more down. Thank you. This is so we're presenting November and December's financials for 2020. So for the month of November, we had an approximately an $80,000 in excess revenue, bringing up it to $930,000 total. Our allocated budget was about 5.9. million for revenue, and our actuals are coming in at 6.8, so $300,000 additional than we expected. Expenditures, allocated budget was $6.2 million, and our actual is about 5.8. So we're almost $1 million under expenditures as we budgeted. Any questions? Moving into the next, so since we're doing two months of financials, I am going to kind of get a little bit deeper into December's. So we move into the next page, please, Wendy. This is the revenue income statement for November 2020. Any questions? All right, next page, please, Wendy. This is the latter half of that. Expenses continued. Is there any questions about this? Okay, program reporting. Next page, please. Our programs are operating as they have been all year. It's really been a COVID year, as we guys all know. Next, can you zoom out just slightly, please, Wendy? We can't quite see. There we go. Thank you. And then next page, please. And this wraps up our programs. Any questions? Next page, please.
Not a question, but for the new members, there are a lot of items on here, so don't be intimidated by them or anything. If you have any questions, get a hold of Chase and he'll clarify everything on that you're seeing.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. If you have any additional questions after the meeting or before the next, I can certainly walk through those with you. Again, I am just going through this really quick, so it's a bit of a detriment to the new members that are seeing these financials for the very first time. I would be happy to answer any questions. Next page, please. A part of these financials, we detail our COVID expenses that we've done through, and this is through November. Through November, we've spent $2 million on the COVID response. Any questions? Again, we're going to be looking at December's here in a second. Next slide, please. Thank you, Wendy. So this is December 2020. I just want to emphasize and point out that these are preliminary financials. They're being year end. We are still having December 2020 bills. Invoices are still coming in. We're still doing some revenue. So there's going to be some slight adjustments to the total net income at the end of the year once those are posted. We also have adjustments for like pension and other post-employment benefits. So these numbers are very preliminary. As we start to do our year-end activity closing, they're subject to change. So as the month of December 2020, we had a gain in excess revenue of $220,000, bringing our net income or gain in excess revenue to $1.1 million. And I'll get into a little bit more detail here. Our allocated budget for the year was $6.4 million, and we brought in just over $8 million in additional revenues. In expenditures, was $6.8 million, and our total actual at the end of the year was $6.9. If the board recalls, and for those that weren't a part of the board, we had an additional funding of $2 million that I believe that was in March or April that that was adopted. So what you're seeing here, that $6.8 million is not including that $2 million. So in all actuality, even with the COVID response, we only overexpend our expenditures by $100,000 for 2020 as we originally budgeted. Next, any questions? Next slide, please. So I just want to focus real quick on the income statement year-to-date revenue piece. As you can see, that's the middle columns. The federal is we expected $900,000 in federal revenue this year, and we pulled in $3.1 million. But you see other like our fees and permits and licensing. A lot of our licensing obviously went down quite a bit due to inactivity throughout the year. So it's really just these financials really do reflect a COVID-like year. Any questions? And again, I'm sorry I'm going through these so quickly. I'd love to, if there's any offline questions, I'd be happy to answer any of those. All right, I just want to point out our advertising for this year, over $3 million for advertising. Professional expenses, over $500,000. Next slide, please. And this is just wrapping up the income statement, not much to note here. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Next page, Wendy. So again, our programs here, a lot of resources were diverted to COVID. So that's what you're really seeing here, right here, that 325 COVID response took up the majority of our activities for the year. Any questions? I would like to dig into the EH stuff, but I will not. The EH stuff is the blue section of these programs, but we'll go through those. If you have any questions, please let me know. Next page, Wendy. And this wraps up our program report. Is there any questions at this point in time? Okay, next page, please. So spend a little more time on this one. This is our COVID year-end financials. I'd just like to point out that the federal funded the majority of our COVID response this year. We spent $2.6 million, closer to $2.7 million combating COVID in the Yakima Valley. The majority of that revenue that came from that was from the federal government. We got 97% of that $2.7 million is federally funded. So I just wanted to point that out, that our federal government certainly did support us as well. That's not reflected on here is our DOH state investigators. DOH hired a team of case investigators. Melissa could go into more detail, but hired a case investigators that is another investment in the fight against COVID in the Yakima Valley that is not reflected on these financials.
And if I may, Chase, also add that what is not also reflected in the financials of the state investment in testing supplies and personal protective equipment that we received as well.
That is true. National Guard and other state entities ran our testing sites through October. So this is not including, has 2 months of testing sites. This is not including any vaccine sites that we might be pulling open. Is there any questions regarding this? So over $300,000 in advertising, which is incredibly important. Professional services, a lot, also very important. Community engagement is over $500,000 for those things. Not to mention $1 million in staff time, in direct staff time. There was $1 million spent. Any questions? Well, thank you. Next slide, please, Wendy. This is what our cash flow is. We have peaks and valleys throughout the year with our cash flow. We generally see a peak in January and July when we get our state shared revenue. And that's what we're going to see right now. We saw a dip in December's cash, and we'll see an increase as we get into the state shared revenue. And then I would like to point out before we is just get into a little bit very quickly our COVID projections for 2021. Will you just click on that slide, please? This was not included in the packet, but we just wanted to point this out or to show you this, that we are projecting into 2021. These projections are a bit high, but this is mostly to illustrate that we have funding through, guaranteed funding through June. We have $4.1 million that we expect through June. Of that, $250,000 is a grant for communication that we're still currently working on, but we do expect to secure that. As of June 20, our DOH Department of Health consolidated contract, which we call our DOH ConCon, it will be renewing at the end of June. So we certainly, and with the messaging coming from the White House right now, we certainly do expect there to be additional funding come mid-year. So this is just to illustrate that with, and the professional services other, as you see, almost $500,000 a month is running test and mass vaccination sites. So those are for test sites and vaccination sites throughout the year. It might not be that much, and hopefully, God willing, that at the tail end of this year, these expenses will start to trail down. That's what we certainly do hope, but we have to, hope for the best, plan for the worst. Is there any questions about the projections for 2021? Okay, that wraps up my report. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chase. As always, it's very detailed and very clear. So again, any members or new members who want specifics, please contact Chase. Next up will be our Chief Financial Operating Officer, Ryan.
All right, thank you. Ryan Ibeck, Chief Operating Officer. The first item I'd like to talk about is the recruitment of the health officer. In December, there was a motion passed to move forward on recruitment for a health officer. At that time, it was decided to look for an interim health officer until we can find a permanent health officer. We advertised in the Yakima Herald over the last month, in the Sunnyside Sun, on our website, and on our social media. I'm happy to announce that we have received candidates we have received submittals for the position from 6 people. One person's interested in the interim only. 2 people are interested in the permanent position only, and 3 people are interested in both interim and permanent positions. So at this point, I just ask for direction from the board on how we want to move forward on our recruitment.
I will defer to Dr. Cleary and Commissioner McKinney and yourself, Ryan.
Well, I think it would be reasonable to provide the information on each of the candidates to all the board members. We don't have a large number to go through, but we could do what we did for our other applicants and have a representative selection committee perform the interviews and move to nominate someone to the board for a vote.
So the question I have is, we do have five of the 6 candidates that are interested in the permanent position. Do we want to move forward with recruiting a permanent health officer, or do we want to continue with that interim stage before the permanent?
I would proceed to a permanent for consistency rather than introducing potentially 2 new public health officers in just a matter of months.
I share that same sentiment.
Any other comments?
I would say with 5 members, I do think it's appropriate, and given the nature of the role of the health officer, that it is not unreasonable to think that the entire board could sufficiently conduct an interview process on all 5 applicants.
I agree.
So, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mayor. You're muted.
I think Ms. Duvall was first. Were you going to speak?
No, I just agreed.
All right, thank you. I was just saying that because we have five applicants that are interested in the permanent position, I think it's the best to move ahead with the permanent position at this point.
Any other comments?
Oh, I would just agree that it would be nice to involve the whole board in it, and if maybe Ryan could send those applications out to the board members, that'd be a great first step. And we can figure out timelines from there.
Is that generally agreeable to everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ryan, if you will proceed with that, we then, once we get those, we can review them and we can consider a date to conduct the interviews.
Okay, and I would like to disclose that Dr. Atterbury is one of the candidates, so he would not be able to be a part of that process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, moving forward with schools. Since the beginning of summer, myself and several staff members have been working with the Educational Service District 105, superintendents, principals, school nurses, and union representatives, and athletic directors. Currently, schools in Yakima County are in-person learning at K through 8 grade levels, along with several private high schools, Natchez High School, and Seal Academy High School. The Yakima Health District has recently urged high schools to look into ways to discuss with their various unions, insurance carriers, ways to increase their small groups of in-person learning for those that are socially and emotional purposes. In weekly discussions with superintendents, we all know that there's negative impacts that remote learning is having on students. Some high schools are increasing the small group sizes of classes, such as Sela High School and Grandview High School. As we believe we have reached a peak in Yakima County and are seeing positive cases and hospitalizations rapidly decreasing, we know it is vital to get high school students back into the in-person learning. And we are working with all the superintendents collectively in Yakima County to come up with a plan in the very near future to safely bring high school students and staff back to in-person learning in stages. At this point, I'd like to read a letter from the superintendent of the Educational Service District, Kevin Chase, who serves Yakima, Kittitas, Grant, and Klickitat counties. Dear Yakima Health District Board of Directors, I represent 66,000 students, 25 public school districts, 22 state-approved private schools, and 1 tribal school in the ESD 105 region. The school leaders in our region are very concerned with the impacts of delaying the return of high school students. We recognize the situation the Yakima Health District is in trying to curtail the infection rates from COVID-19 and want to work with you to examine a path forward for reopening high schools. I am writing to request the opportunity to present our ideas for reopening high schools in Yakima County. We have been working on a presentation to illustrate the need, the impact, and the plan to phase the return of high schools in Yakima County. Our vision for this would be a small group of presenters presenting to the decision-making body and a discussion to follow. So in this presentation, the superintendents will be prepared within the next week to schedule this presentation, and it would be a major step in moving forward. And also I know Dr. Yeka has kind of some information that he would like to share also with, I don't know if you want to do that as part of your report, Dr. Yeka, or you want to chime in now.
Ryan, I'm sorry. Ryan, if I could interject for just a minute, I just want to state that this is the letter from Mr. Chase is very welcome news to me. I know there, as we look, ways to move forward through this, I will tell you, we hear from a lot of parents and kids that have this concern. And so, and in fact, the CDC actually just put out a report yesterday, and I haven't read the details of it, but they are very strongly encouraging all of us that it is in our best interest to get our kids back in school. So this is welcome news to me. And so let's keep moving forward.
If I may share, Commissioner Lindy, it's timely. Ryan has really been the point person working with the schools, and we've always seen this as a partnership with our local school systems. What we needed to do, and I know Dr. Yucca will discuss this at length, was get through the very, very high numbers that we had as a result of the holidays. So the timing is ideal.
I
just might add, I am very much in favor of getting our schools back in order. So I will be very pleasant to hear from them. And I think we can sure work together for the best for our communities.
Is it appropriate for the board to discuss taking a purview or a recommendation to staff that as a board, we're supportive of staff working with the goal of getting K through 12 back? Is it important for the board to advise you of the wishes of the board in that sense?
Commissioner McKinney, I think that's, if I may, Ryan, I think that's perfectly reasonable.
If we're looking for a motion, I would make a motion that the Board of Health, it shows their support for Ryan Ibach, Dr. Yucca, and Director Fresco to work to cooperate in any way to make sure that we are getting those kids K through 12 safely back at the earliest possibility.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to support the efforts of the health board to work with the school district to get the schools back open and functioning. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but is there any discussion?
The only comment that I'd make, Commissioner Anderson, is that my wife serves on the Sunnyside School Board, and she has shared with me out of a potential graduating class of 450 seniors for 2021, 200 students that are currently failing.
How many?
200 out of the 450. And I hope that just paints a picture of how significant this issue is for our children.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, that information, I have seen the draft of the presentation, and information such as that is included in the presentation. As one superintendent noted in the meeting, that we are near a crisis and something needs to be done.
Thank you.
And if I may, Dr. Yerk, I know was going to discuss his thoughts on trends in terms of where the numbers are reducing, which helps with this. But I do want to share with the board full disclosure that this isn't just about getting kids back in school. This is about a commitment that the health district wants to make long-term to help remedy the long-term effects that we anticipate that have come through this crisis. And so it's not just getting vaccinations and getting everyone back in school. It's helping school systems, parents, families, communities overcome the long-term effects of this crisis.
Cleary.
Okay. Any more on this before I move on to my other items?
We have a motion on the table.
We have a motion on the table. So if there are any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. So you have the board's support to move forward and work with the school districts to get the schools back open safely, and all of those other things that go with that. It's not just getting them bodies back in the buildings. It's their family health. It's their emotional health. It's all of those things that are combined that are causing all of these things. So this is a huge step.
Yeah, and I thank you. That's very, very exciting news. And then the last two things I have, just real quick, we do have a couple openings at the Yakima Health District that I wanted to let everyone know. We do have an opening for the public health nurse position. We do have a opening, well, we will be having an opening for an epidemiologist, and Lillian will be talking a little bit more about that in her report. And then also we've been approved from the State Department of Health. We have a disease outbreak team. And as we see migrant farm workers coming into the valley, as we see more schools opening up, we have a concern of possibly increasing cases and hospitalizations and outbreaks. And so we have had approval from State Department of Health to add 2 more members to that outbreak investigation team. So we will be, disease outbreak team. So we will be adding 2 more people to that team that there's already of 9 people. And then finally, we do want to again welcome all the new board members. We do have an orientation for new board members. We do have several board members already in place that need to go through that orientation. So we're looking forward to having all the new members going through an orientation hopefully before the February meeting, so we can introduce you to public health in the state of Washington, public health in the county, and how things work in the Yakima Health District. So we look forward to that orientation.
So do I. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Next is Health Officer Dr. Yaka?
Yaka, yeah.
Yaka, thank you.
Okay, yeah, it has a Y sound to the J.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I been here interim a short time. I want to just acknowledge you have such a great staff. Andre and his leadership and all of the staff have just been welcoming me and really doing a hard work at this. It's unbelievable times we're in. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And just like to commend them for a job well done. Everyone's tired and they still go forward. And they're working hard. So I just wanted to thank them all. I'll try to be brief, but there are a couple of major things. I'm not going to get into just a lot of numbers. Other staff can give you numbers, but we are seeing downtrends, and that's favorable and very favorable. And so I think this will really help us in making decisions in schools and all that going forward. One area you're hearing about, we're in this phase, the regional phase, and we're at the mercy of all other counties. And going into that, we are talking on a weekly basis, and Andre and I are talking to all the other members in our region. And we even have a representative from the county commissioners with us on this. So we're doing our best to at least keep each other informed. We don't really like this regional concept, but we're going to do the best we can to get us to move forward. You're hearing a lot about the variant strains. We do have it finally in our state. Snohomish County has the first variant strain. It's like the UK strain. There's UK variant strain of the COVID virus, and there's a South African and also a Brazilian strain. So far, how they find the different variants, they do a very small percentage of the positives, and then they further do viral sequencing and the genomic methods. And what it means for us is really just to inform the public that, yes, we do, there are maybe new strains, but we treat it just like all the others. We're going to treat it the same, quarantine, everything else. And the main thing is do our masking, safe distancing, all these things that we have been doing, plus get vaccine in the most people we can. I think this is our panacea, because so far the vaccines are effective in the strains that we know of. So that's a little on the variant. The other thing I'd like for you to be aware of, I think you're all aware of, I know Andre has been working, the governor has legislation dropped this month, and it affects everything you've been talking about, your Board of Health and county commissioners' involvement in health. It's a bill that's kind of, I think, reflective of the difficulty public health has had. We've lost a lot of health officers and administrators. They've been fired, they've been threatened, and but there's many things that we're really concerned about this bill. It does have a good funding source. That would be favorable, but the rest is a regionalization concept, and it takes away from local public health. The health officers will only be by region, they'll be state employees, and I could go on. But I just want you to be aware that we need to talk to our legislators and about this.
Doctor, do you have the bill number at hand so that
I don't. Andre, do you have that?
No, there's multiple, but we can get that from what's called the Washington State Association of Local Public Health.
Yep.
Okay. Andre and I are both on the WASAC, the SOLFO committee that's coming up with strategize ways that we can preempt this bill.
Okay. I'm going to ask Andre if you can get that information out to the board members. That would be great.
Yes, happily. Thank you. And if I may, Dr. Ecker, if I could just add, that's part of the complexity, is that the investment in local public health, which we view as a local investment in local government and local community, has been something that we've been working on for over 10 years, the idea of a system being fully funded. The complexity is that it's coming with great constraints, which no one had anticipated. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Yeah, it's not all bad. That's right. But I think the governors have taken public health out of the local control is a thing that we're concerned about. So I think we should all be aware of that, because it has far-reaching involvement of how health will be in Yakima County. So with that, if you have any questions, I could entertain them. Other than that, thanks for being your interim, and good luck on getting a permanent health officer, and a good one. Just be in mind that there's a lot of provisions, if the individual doesn't have a master's in public health, there's a lot of, they are provisional for 3 years, and there's a lot of mentoring and working with the state health officer to get them up to full-time health officer.
Thank you for that information, Doctor. We'll now move to our local emergency response coordinator, Nathan.
Good morning, everybody. I will start by talking about the hot topic, which is vaccines. Right now, as of Monday night, we've received 11,125 doses into the county. We've administered 11,082 doses, and that is for the first dose. That's both Moderna and Pfizer combined. And then we've received 4,050 doses of this, the booster dose, so the second dose, and we've administered 1,988. I do want to mention a big caveat on those numbers. Those numbers, like for our first dose does not reflect that we only have 40-something doses left in our county. What our providers are finding, not only locally, but throughout the country, is with the Pfizer specifically, if they use the Johnson & Johnson Vantage Point needle, there's less dead space, and they're able to actually pull an additional dose out of those vials. So instead of 5 doses, they're getting 6 doses if they use those. Those are being hard to come by, and the federal government is doing a lot to try to secure a supply chain for those, because they know that that is critical with getting an additional dose. The Moderna as well, they're finding that many of the Moderna vials are actually containing enough for an additional dose. So even though they're earmarked for 10 doses, they're oftentimes being able to pull 11 doses out of those, which is awesome. It means we're getting in technically more doses than what's being reported, but I did just want to throw that caveat out there. And we are working on communicating that out as we communicate what our numbers are each week. So kind of where we're at as far as planning. I was put on mute real quick.
Yeah. You're on mute again. You're still on mute, Nathan.
Nathan, you're muted.
There you go. There you
My
go.
computer's going crazy. It keeps putting me on mute. I'm not even touching it. Okay, we'll try this again. So how distribution is currently working right now is, again, the state is getting an allotment each month. They are further distributing those to our facilities who have been enrolled with the state. And, just because one facility gets a doses 1 week doesn't mean they're necessarily going to get it the next week. We pretty much find out on a week-by-week basis of what we're going to get into the county and where those are going to go. Sometimes it's real time. Sometimes it's a day or two in advance. It's frustrating on the planning level, but we're doing everything we can on our side of the house to be that conduit between the state and between our providers to make sure they have that information as quickly as they can for planning out and scheduling for that week. Really cannot emphasize and applaud our healthcare partners enough. They have stepped up to the plate. Right now it's our Fqhcs, or federally qualified medical centers. So Farm Workers Clinic, Neighborhood Health, Community Health of Central Washington, our 3 hospitals, Astrea Sunnyside, Astrea Toppenish, and Yakima Valley Memorial. But then we also have additional smaller clinics that have started receiving the vaccine, Yakima Family Medicine, Mid-Valley Clinic. There's some smaller pharmacies, Tieton Village Pharmacy, who's doing a lot of work helping out with long-term care facilities. So they're really doing everything that they can to increase their staffing, to develop internal systems for scheduling, and get these vaccines out as quickly as they can. They do have a new mandate from the governor over the last week or so that they have to go through 95% of their doses within 7 days of receiving them. And our partners are ready. Yakima Valley Memorial, for example, they have they stood up a clinic offsite of the hospital. They built in a new scheduling program, and they're able to do up to 750 doses a day if they have the doses to support it. Yakima Valley Farm Workers and our Astrea hospitals are doing other community clinics. Again, they're just really stepping up to the plate and answering the call, despite all the frustration with lack of doses. So that's our current plan of how we're distributing vaccines right now. As we go into the future, there was a lot of concern on why Yakima wasn't selected to get a mass vaccine site, state mass vaccine site like Benton Franklin and Wenatchee received. That is not saying that we're not planning for that locally. I know that there was a press conference yesterday, feels like a week ago already, at the Sundome, kind of looking at what we're trying to plan for at the Sundome, which is a very similar concept to our testing sites, a community drive-through site where it would be no out-of-pocket costs. People would drive through. We can register them real quick. We could give them the vaccine. And then there'll be a place for them to park and we can monitor. We're looking at how other counties, Spokane and Snohomish County, who have done similar drive-through efforts to make sure we address some of those concerns around doing that kind of thing. But a big caveat on that is we're really dependent on how much vaccine we get to be able to support that. So right now we are doing everything we can to build the infrastructure locally, so we are ready for those doses. So from the health district side of things, we're making contracts with the tent company. We're making contracts with Signal Health, who will be our staffing partner on that. And they also staff our Yakima testing site. So when, and Chase alluded to this earlier when he was giving his report, but there is costs associated with standing up one of these sites. But we know we don't plan on hiring people and just waiting 2 months and having them do nothing while we wait for the vaccine. So what we're doing is making sure we have the infrastructure in place, the contracts in place, the tents up, the power strips purchased, and all of that stuff. So we're really waiting on the vaccine to be able to go live with that. But in the meantime, it's really going to be a community resource. Again, a lot of our healthcare partners who are either doing things in clinic, they're also trying to do community-based sites where they go off-site from their clinic. And this site would be available to them. If they want to bring their vaccine and a couple staff members, we can supply it with some volunteers, and we can do a quick little pop-up clinic to go through those doses real quick. But it won't be a really good scheduled thing like how we have our testing, where it's, Tuesday through Saturday, this time to this time, until we get that good amount of vaccine. So huge props to Yakima Valley Office of Emergency Management, who is being a good partner in this and helping us plan with the logistics and get these things in place. So that's kind of where we're looking at. We know long term, we can't just continue to put this all on our healthcare system's shoulders to be able to handle. We have to have different tools in the toolbox to ensure that the vaccine is accessible, it's equitable, there's low barriers for the community to receive it. And so that comes in different forms, such as being able to have access in a clinic setting. There's drive-through settings. There's other community walk-up type clinics that our partners are doing. And then there's some a little bit more targeted type teams as well. All of these systems, and we're really modeling kind of how we did community-based testing, where it took a few months to be able to put these systems in place, but now we have so many different avenues to get testing out to a community, whether it's a targeted team going out or whether it's a drive-through or just someone going into a clinic. So that's our overarching goal. Understanding our biggest limitation is vaccine availability, but locally we are working with our partners to be able to have that infrastructure in place to where we're just waiting on that vaccine. And I will pause on vaccine real quick and answer any specific questions on vaccines before I give my last little note.
Nathan, I think it's important to make clear based off the press conference yesterday that site down at the Sundome is indeed ready, just waiting the vaccine. So we do need to have the vaccine coming into our county in substantial enough numbers that they would be able to project having 500 doses per day for at least a week was the message. So it is ready, but not waiting people because we do not have the vaccine. So as soon as we get the clearance and we get vaccine coming in a substantial level, we would be able to open up that site.
Agreed. And with the staffing model, we are working again with Signal Health, the same staffing partner as the testing site, which is working out awesome because they're going to be able to actually start hiring some of their vaccinators, some of these RNs and MAs who will be the vaccinators, but have them be working at the test site. So as soon as we were to go, and those are the hardest people to be able to find, those medically licensed people who want that job. So and then we can supplement with different volunteers for some traffic control and things like that. But we're really doing everything we can to have that site be ready to go. The tents are up right now. We're purchasing some final little equipment throughout this week, and we'll be ready to go.
And may I add, Commissioner McKinney, what we want in a disaster response are options. So having that site set up allows us many options. If a hospital, because again, as you know, we are not in control of the vaccine distribution. If a hospital receives thousands of vaccine doses but cannot administer at their location, they can come and use that site. if a location for some reason goes down and they want to transfer vaccine to another clinician group that can then show up at that site, we're happy to do so. And we're also working on MOUs with volunteers. So Nathan has been creating options for us in a community response.
Thank you for pointing that out, Director Fresco. We're doing good things here at a local level.
Absolutely. I would just piggyback on that and say kudos to the health district and the EMS and everyone else who's involved in this. We just, this can be a great benefit for our citizens in the long run. So well done.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, as far as the list that people are getting on to get the vaccination, how is that working, and is it working efficiently?
I would say the list is working as efficiently as it possibly can right now. Again, we're working on streamlining these systems to really be better, but right now how it works, there's two different ways someone can access the vaccine or locations that have the vaccine. They could go to findyourphasewa.org, which is a state-run and maintained website where they can answer a few questions. It'll tell them what phase they fall under. And then if they fall under the phase that we're vaccinating, and again, we in Yakima County are following the state's rule. So as the state continues to increase what phases they're vaccinating, we are following that. And we did so with opening up to 1B Tier 1 over the last week or so. But the second portion, and we always urge people to look at our website because that is more updated and easily updated information on the local level. Our partners will reach out to us and they'll say, hey, we're out of vaccine or we're all scheduled up. Please take us off that list, and we'll take them off that list real time. There is that human factor. It takes a few minutes for that organization to, of course, get a hold of us and us to go onto that website and take them down. But we try to keep that as updated as possible throughout the week, so everyone knows where the vaccine is and how to schedule that appointment. I hope that answers your question.
The mass vaccination site will also utilize appointment schedules. So it will become, I think, a lot easier for people to access easily the vaccine when they know that they can sign on to that one large source. But the issue right now has been that multiple sources have different vaccines and numbers of vaccines, and the health district is trying to update the public in real time, dependent upon receiving that information from all of those partners. And Nathan did a good job of describing some of the many partners in our county who are receiving the vaccine. So we don't have centralized coordination from the inside. It is the health district doing a phenomenal job of trying to, from the outside, with our partners who are volunteering that information to get that updated for the.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I'll also just point out that we do weekly meetings with all of our partners who are vaccinating, so we can continue how to streamline whether it's our overarching countywide system or how we can help support our healthcare partners in their internal processes as well. And the last thing I wanted to just real quickly touch on is for the new board members, we do what is called a daily situational report, also known as a sit rep. And basically it is a Word document. It'll have highlighted information that is updated from that day. Victoria will be sending that out on a daily basis to each board member so they can get those updates. If there's any questions specifically to that, you could reach out and we can address those as those pop up. But it has a host of different information from what testing is kind of looking like, what vaccines looking like, what some of our communications are, and so on. And then the other thing is any media releases that we send out will also be sent to you from Victoria as well. So we do our best job to keep all of our board members well informed of kind of what's going on. And of course, any questions specific to our response or what we're doing, always able to answer any questions. So thank you for your time and welcome to the board.
Thank you, Nathan. Next, any questions or comments? Go ahead, Mary.
Chair, for just a moment. Yes, thank you. I have worked with all of you on the Open Yakima Task Force from the inception, which is, as you know, is a group of community partners all working toward the same goal. And I just want to commend you for the tremendous amount of work you have shouldered and for how well you are working with each of the hoops that arise in our community to move us forward through the situation. It's been a lot of work, a lot of responsibility. You've done an amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to Melissa Sixberry and her report.
Good morning, and I'd like to say welcome to all the new board members. I'm Melissa Sixberry. I'm the Director of Disease Control for Yakima Health District. I'm also a registered nurse. I work closely with the health officer, not just on COVID, but also for every communicable disease that's reportable in the state of Washington. So if you ever have any questions on medical piece, feel free to reach out to me. I also oversee our outbreak team and our case investigators. So that's one of my things I want to talk about in the report. I know we didn't meet in November, so I'm not sure we even talked about the fact that we brought our case investigation internally. So we have 7 individuals who are doing our case investigations here locally now, which has given us much better data on outbreaks and trends. And so we work closely with that team along with our outbreak team to quickly identify any outbreaks or any trends that might be happening. Last month we had 28, when we reported on December 2nd, I believe, we had 28 people hospitalized. We're currently at 28 today as well. We've kind of reached a peak there in early to mid-January. So I agree with Dr. Yeka. I think the numbers are favorable right now and the direction that we're going. That's about all I have. We, like Ryan mentioned earlier, we are adding on 2 additional staff members from our Department of Health outbreak team. They are employed by Department of Health, but they are specific for Yakima County. And so we're adding 2 more in anticipation with hoping to get schools opened up, that there may be an increase in outbreaks, as well as with agriculture and migrant workers coming in, so that we can address outbreaks quickly. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Hearing none. Good. Thank you very much, Melissa. We'll move on to environmental health and Sean McGee.
Yeah, hello, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome the new board members. Look forward to working with you all. I'm Sean McGee, the Director of Environmental Health. My role during the COVID-19 pandemic has been pretty much all things business response, business operations, what's the latest restrictions and guidance out there for businesses and different activities that can be happening out in the community. So myself and my team, we work on education and outreach for our local businesses. As of late, along with a lot of our normal environmental health inspections and services that we provide, the hot topic has been our restaurants with the latest release of the open air dining criteria. Came out from the state. They're early on the release of this document. There's a lot of confusion between what qualifies for indoor dining and what qualifies as utilizing an indoor space for open air dining. So we kicked it into high gear. We reached out to these facilities that were claiming they were approved to open for indoor dining. We reached out to our Department of Labor and Industries and Liquor Control Board to ensure that there was consistency with the open air dining guidance. And what we found was, in fact, restaurants were just, they were open using indoor spaces for open air dining, but they were calling it indoor dining, which kind of spread to a lot of confusion around the food industry in our county, that they were able to open indoors 25%, when in reality, they needed to implement the open air dining guidance. So we continue to work on kind of myth busting some of the rumors going out around there, keep everybody on the same page, delivering consistent messaging to our food industry about how they can operate with the open air guidance. We are offering support and walking them through that process for their specific facility, as well as encouraging them to utilize the consultation teams that Department of Labor and Industry and Liquor Control Board has out there available locally to ensure that whatever, however they want to implement their open air structures or try to utilize indoor space, they are meeting the criteria. So there are resources out there. My team and I are working hard to get those resources spread far and wide. We included these resources in a newsletter that we're sending out to all of our food establishments, touching on different food safety topics to keep in mind, as well as latest COVID-19 updates and different resources they can reach out to get help. So along with that, we're also, with our numbers seeming to be favoring and being more favorable and trending downward, we're kind of ramping up preparation for phase 2. Not that we have any approval or, expect in the next cycle we may go to phase 2, but there is always the possibility. We want our citizens and our business community to be ready and prepared for that. We want to have a plan in place ahead of that. So when we get word that eventually when we do get to move to phase 2, everybody knows what to do. Everybody knows how they're able to operate. No one's left behind confused and wondering if in fact they do get to go to phase 2 and how they get to operate in phase 2. So I'll be bringing some homework to the Business Reopen Task Force meeting that happens every Thursday on how we can distribute out that information where businesses can find specific guidance for them when phase 2 does come about, and how we can implement, a quick and efficient messaging system that once we get word that we're moving to phase 2, our businesses also get that notification. So that's what we're working on now. I'm happy to take any questions.
I would only like to commend Sean because he spent a great deal of time reaching out to the state and trying to provide clarification to businesses who had not yet received the okay to open, who were talking to businesses who had received the okay to reopen. And as you can imagine, there was a lot of concern there among those businesses that were impacted. And he worked double, triple overtime to try to get those people good information, and has the unique and unfortunate situation of not being able to give finality in his advice. He's only providing recommendations to what the state guidance is, and he threads the needle very well. And Sean, you just have done a fantastic job for our business community, and I want to commend you for that.
I appreciate that. It was very much a team effort. A lot of credit goes to a lot of health district staff for that too, but thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move on to the Public Health Partnership and Lillian.
Commissioner Anderson, can I add something real quick?
Sure.
I just want to remind anyone that is on the meeting and you haven't identified yourself in the chat box, please identify yourself and if you have an affiliation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Lillian.
Thank you. Just checking, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. So welcome to all the new board members. Lillian Bravo, Director of Public Health Partnerships. My background is in public health. I have a master's in public health, and I worked here at the Yakima Health District for 3.5 years. So normally, on a normal day, this department would include the county's developmental disabilities program, several chronic disease prevention programs, as well as a variety of other programs. But for the purposes of COVID, my role is the public information officer. So we have, essentially, we do all the communications on behalf of the Yakima Health District, both internally and externally. With that being said, as Ryan mentioned earlier, we have been trying to recruit for an epidemiologist for several months now. Originally started with recruiting through the Department of Health candidate pool, but that wasn't successful. So we will be recruiting directly through the Yakima Health District. Really, we're very excited to be moving forward in this. Epidemiologists have the training to analyze complex data sets. Currently, we do anticipate that individual will focus on the COVID-19 pandemic. And what that will allow is more in-depth analysis on the trends of the disease, looking at geospatial analysis, hotspotting, and further use of our case investigation data to communicate more effectively with the community on where some of these trends are. So, of course, while we're looking at COVID-19 right now, I do anticipate that individual, if funds allow, will be able to help us with assessment across Yakima County in general. An additional hiring news, as I alluded to earlier, we will be having more communications coming from the Yakima Health District and this department specifically. So we did hire a communications specialist, Stephanie Vidillo. She'll be beginning on February 1st, and I look forward to introducing her at the next meeting. In addition, I wanted to share some news that the Henry Beauchamp Community Center notified that the Yakima Health District received the Spirit of the Dream Award, which is right here. It was a really nice surprise. I think that was great news for everyone at the Yakima Health District to receive that recognition. When we were notified of the award, Adrienne Garner, the director, stated, your unwavering contributions to the Yakima Valley have not gone unnoticed. And I just want to say that that was really touching on behalf of all of the staff to be able to receive that recognition. We know it's a tough time. Everyone's been working day, nights, and weekends to make sure that we can do the day-to-day work on top of the COVID-19 pandemic work. So receiving something like this, especially with the name of Martin Luther King, was very special. So thank you to the Henry Beauchamp Community Center for nominating the Yakima Health District. Just know that the entire staff was very appreciative. And in the interest of time, I'll just go on one last update. With vaccines happening, we will be launching something called the I Got the Vax campaign. And so essentially what we'll be doing is providing stickers to everyone who gets the vaccine here in Yakima. And we'll also be asking people to do something similar as what we did with the Mask Up to Open Up campaign, is to share why they got the vaccine. And for those who aren't eligible to get the vaccine now, they also have the opportunity to share why they're planning on getting the vaccine. So that is something that you should be seeing within the community. Again, we'll be using the hashtags and social media primarily, but we'll also be encouraging community members to participate in public service announcements. So I invite all the board members to participate as well if you're planning on getting the vaccine, to be able to share that information and gain that community support. So if you're interested, please let me know, or if you have other ideas on other community leaders who may be interested in participating, please reach out to me and we can make sure that that gets out. And with that, I'll stop with any updates, with any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Lillian? Seeing and hearing none. Thank you all very much for your participation today. It was a lot of information, a lot of topics, a lot of detail to go through. Looking forward to meeting in a future time and date here to discuss further our issues of the membership of the board and that kind of information. So if there's no other comments or questions.
Mr. Anderson, I would just like to make one comment. I know Andre will be sending out that House bill information to the board members, but for those in the audience, it is House Bill number 1152 and House Bill 1110.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cleary.
Thank you. If I may, Commissioner, if I just may thank Jim Curtis for joining us and welcome him to the board as well. We've had a long relationship with the coroner's office, and specifically around COVID, their work has been invaluable in supporting us as well. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, excuse me, any new business? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I would second that.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes, and thank you all very much for your dedication and your input and your attention to all of the details that we're going through. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, everyone.